Hi, welcome back to the workshop for episode 25 of Great Guitar Build Off 2023, and in this episode we're going to finish off fitting that Floyd Rose. Last time we covered quite a lot of ground on this. We got the stud holes drilled out for mounting the tremolo, we got the hole routed in that houses the tremolo block and the stud that holds the tremolo arm in, and on the other side we got the housing for the springs and the claw and everything, and also we routed out the back, but I added a little bit of extra space back here to house the battery for the onboard effects. So we did quite a lot, and it just left us with the two routes at the front so that we can flush mount this tremolo, because I don't want it surface mounted. However, I did have an issue with my template in so much as it wasn't thick enough to work with the router bits that I've got. So I've done a little bit of work and I've created this one out of 18mm MDF, so that's a lot more sturdy and robust. So now we just need to position this in such a way as we can route out this area here, which needs to be 6mm down from the surface, and then we've got this section here that we can then position to route out the back bit, which needs to go down 11mm, which will allow all of this stuff free range of movement. However, the drawing I've got doesn't really work with the setup that I seem to have here. I don't know if there's an issue with the drawing, what I've done, or whether my tremolo is slightly different from the one that they've worked this on. This isn't a Floyd Rose item, it's a copy, so there might be slight differences in the way that it's constructed. However, if I set this up the way that this is suggesting, the front of that route would be about there, which might be a little bit further forward than I want it. It's hard to tell really. If I put a square on that, it's just ever so slightly forward of the mounting holes. I'm going to try and just bring that back a touch. It's not much, it's only a mil or so. And I've basically got this set up so that I've drawn a line that matches where the front face of that route is, and I've got some lines on my template that will line up with there. We just need to center the template, stick it in position, and then we can get all of that routed down to that 6mm depth. So I think the first step in that is just to kind of get everything in position and draw around the template and see what that looks like. Think that looks all right. Okay, so that's that template fastened on. I've got the router set up again. It's got the big base on, and I've set this up to go down 21mm, so that's 18mm of the template and 3mm of the material that we want to remove. We're going down a total of 6mm, so I'll have to do a second pass, another 3mm, and hopefully that should give us a nice clean result. It's been quite a lot of work to fit this. There's been a lot of routing and a lot of noise, but hopefully we're on the right track and we're nearly there with it. So I'll get this whipped out and then we can move on to the second bit behind it, and then we're ready to test fit everything. And that looks really nice. Happy with the way that that's gone, and it's tidied up this edge here that was a little bit scratchy, so that's good as well. It seems as if it might be a little bit tight in this back corner, We might just have to adjust that a little bit, but I can't really tell until I've got this section routed out because that's holding the trem off. So I'll get this set up for the second bit of this route that goes down 11 mil. I'm not quite sure how that works, but we'll crack it one way or the other, and then we'll be able to see much better if this fits. If it doesn't, I think it's just a case of, well, I'll have to reset that template just ever so slightly back and kind of go again. I'm sure it'll be fine. Okay, so that's that rear bit routed out, and it appears I've missed something here because this section of the front route up to the point where it meets that plane needs to be down at that level as well. So there's a little bit of work to do there, but now I need to find out if I've actually got things the right size and whether it's all going to fit. And I want to do that before I do any further routing. So the time has come where I need to install these post bushings. And I haven't done this before now because I don't want to be taking these in and out if I can help it. I just want to put them in once. So I'm just going to see how easily they tap in. That's gone in nicely. And that's the studs in. I didn't really hit them that hard. I wanted to make sure that they were going in nice and easily, but not so easily that they were just going to come out again. So I think we've got the ideal kind of balance there. The problem is, if those holes were too small and I tried to force them in, there's probably only 6-7 millimeters of material behind it, especially in this one. It's not too bad there because it's supported by this material here, but there's just a gap. So if the hole wasn't big enough and I forced it in, there's potential for that to split, which we don't want. And I also understand that with these tremolos, it is also the case that over time, with the amount of pressure that's put onto this system, it can actually damage and split the wood. And if the pickup route is too close to the bridge, it can all collapse into there. So for that reason, I think I will try and keep my pickup a little bit away from that. And with that in there, you can see now that this is not far enough back. So we do need to move this route slightly further back just to take out a little bit more material there, and at the same time we can take it down to its final depth. So not quite right first time, but we're getting closer with every little job that we do. So I'll set this up again and we can get this routed now and hopefully get it down to its final depth as well. Okay, so that's the template set back up again, and I've also added this little temporary fence just to keep that cut confined to the right area. Hopefully, fingers crossed, if we've got this right, this will be the last routing for the time being and we can get on to fitting it. Okay, so put those studs back in and we'll just get that in position and see what we think. And well, it fits and it's got clearance, and I actually think that looks nice. There's a little bit more of a gap there than I would have liked. I would have liked to have been that a bit closer, but to be honest, where those studs are positioned, it could only possibly come back about another 2 mil. So it's not absolutely horribly out of place, but I think the back route fits really well, and there seems to be a really good range of movement on there, which is great. So next up, we need to get this turned over and see if we can install the claw and the springs and everything, get it in place properly. So all that really leaves now is to fit this claw that the spring's attached to. However, that's not quite as straightforward as it might seem, because I want to recess my cover into here. It means I've got limited capacity in terms of height to fit this. And I do know from experience, from having had strats in the past, that the 2 screws that hold this in, by definition, have to go in at an angle. And that means the further out this way they come, the higher they get, which could mean that my claw is actually too high to fit the recessed covering that I want to. I don't really want to go any deeper with the recess, because that runs the risk of breaking through into the pickup cavity, and I don't want that. So this is going to be a bit of a trade-off. My thoughts at the moment are get this fitted, even if it might be temporarily, just to see what clearance issues I might run into. It might be the case that I have to recess this cover plate in and then kind of route out some of the underside of that cover plate to give clearance for the claw and the bottom of the tremolo block. This seems as if it's going to give me quite a bit of clearance, but you never know. We shall have to see. It's one of those things you're never really going to find out until you give it a bash. So what I'm going to do is I've got a long series drill bit. This is 3.5 mil. These screws on the outside dimension are 4 mil, so that should give me a little bit of bite on the screws. I'm going to go right into the corner of here and get the lowest angle I possibly can. I'm actually helped by the fact that this cutout is a little bit elongated, and I'm just going to see how much clearance I can give myself. Okay, so there it is, kind of fully fitted. Obviously, I've got no strings on it yet, so this is pulled right back, even though I've only got 2 springs on. There's no counteracting force on the front of it, which would pull it level, which is what the strings will do once we get them on there. Surprising the amount of force that you need to move this when you haven't got strings on. But obviously that will all come good. But I'm happy to say it kind of all moves really nicely, feels really smooth. So I think that can only bode well. In terms of the back, there is a little bit of room. The claw is actually quite low. I think there's plenty of room with the claw. The springs, not quite so much, but there might be the potential to just tweak these coils ever so slightly upwards, which would pull the springs down a little bit. But once I pull the trem into something like the position it's going to be in, there is actually a few millimeters of clearance in there. So I might be able to do something with that recessed top after all. That will be something I'm probably going to have to play with and fine tune as we go along. But on the whole, I think that's gone quite well. I was dreading doing this. I thought it was going to be a nightmare. It's been interesting. There have been some issues in getting this in. I think the next one's going to be a lot easier, but on the whole, I'm very, very happy with it. And it all works very nicely with the laminations in the wood as well. There's a tiny little sliver of maple showing there on that mahogany stripe that isn't matched on the bottom. So I'll probably just kind of very gently pare that off with a chisel just to make it look aesthetically balanced. It won't make an ounce of difference. It's less than a millimetre. But it'll always look wrong if I leave it on. So all in all, I think that's gone very well. I'm happy with it, and obviously can't wait to get some strings onto this thing and just to feel how it plays and what it sounds like. But obviously that is going to be a long way down the line. We've got plenty of work to be getting on with before that can happen. There are some fairly sizable jobs that need sorting out, like we need to carve the neck and get that all sorted out. Fair bit of work in there. We need to get some frets into the fretboard, get that stuck on. But there's a lot of little jobs as well. So I need to get a pickup route in. I think that's going to be my next job. I think that makes sense because it's removing a big chunk of material out of there, which again will give us some idea of what the finished weight's going to be. But also there's the need to kind of drill through from there into the cavity down here. And I would prefer to do that before I glue the body wings on. So I think that is going to be my next task, but that's going to be for the next episode. So I'm going to leave this one here. So as always, don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.